How you doing? Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the garage. Today we're going to do something a little different. Got a screw in the tire on the V4R, which is obviously a problem. Exhibit number 1. In any event, we're going to have to get that changed out, and we're going to try something a little different, which is the Rabaconda. For those of you who don't know what the Rabaconda is, it's a device that allows you to swap out your own tires from the rims. Very handy. And hopefully not too much trouble, but we'll go through the unboxing and see how all that goes. So let's get started. So everything's unboxed at this point. Let's have a look around. We got what looks to be a very sturdy bag. Got a few adapters, the most important of which is the 56mm Ducati adapter, since most of my bikes are Ducatis. We got some bead grease, the tire iron covers, the main lever arm, we got the duck head, the framing, and some other accessory parts, things like that. And let's get it put together. Alright, so we've got everything out here for the most part. Let's see how long it takes us to put it all together. I did assemble a few, like some what I'll call minor pieces, but for the most part I didn't really do any pre-assembly on this. So let's see how it goes. Solid rubber base, so it can slide around on you. Alright, this seems to be pretty good. These little spacers. And then, let's see, this is the slider for the main lever arm. This is the piece that I did pre-assemble, so I just put this little piece in here. So if you get this stretched out, you probably just want to tighten it down. Okay. You put your tire spacers on here. These are adjustable. And these can slide up and down, depending on what the size of your tire is. And they're pretty stuck on there, I have to say. They're magnetic, but they are very sticky. So I guess you just have to slide them up and down. And it looks like you attach this ratchet system. So the handle side goes up. Alright, and then the operating handle. A little set screw in there that you have to loosen up first, which I didn't do, and I don't have the little screwdriver that I need to do that, so I'll have to loosen this up and then put the operating handle in there. So anyway, get a little Allen set screw. And then I believe you need to tighten these all up together. Nothing moves around with these little screw tighteners. Keep everything solid. Yeah, you can feel that tightening up. There's another one up here. And then, obviously, depending on where your bead is and your tire is relative to where you need to break the bead, when you put the operating handle in there, you're going to need to be able to adjust this. So, typically, it slides up and down, which I believe is the adjustment for where the bead breaker lines up on the edge of the tire. that's basically it. Alright, so I did say I didn't have the little Allen key to loosen the set screws. It turns out you don't really need to do that. There's a little groove in here, so basically the screw should be tight already. You just line it up with that groove and then it turns, and then it's pretty in there, pretty solid. So that's something that wasn't quite obvious from the instructions, but nevertheless, once you look at it, you'll figure it out pretty quick. And then this thing seems to, like, you hold it back and kind of put it out of the way. So next, let's get a tire off and see what we can do. Now we got the Rabaconda all set up. We need to get the tire off so we can work on getting get the wheel off so we can take the tire off the rim. As I said, we have this screw in the tire, so we need to remedy that situation. So if you haven't ever taken off a tire with a back wheel of a V4R or an R or V4 or whatever, a couple of things that you're going to really want in your toolbox. One is an impact drill like this, because getting this off without that is really, I would say, next to impossible. First thing you want to do is spin this around. I'm going to pull this little clip off. So a retaining clip comes off pretty easy. It's just stretches out and put it someplace safe, because you're going to need to put that back on at some point. Take your impact wrench, drill rather, make sure it's on there nice and straight, just a little at a time. Until it breaks loose. Once it breaks loose, you can loosen this by hand. It comes off pretty easy. Just be careful, because there's like little spacers and things in here that you do want to make sure you don't want to lose. There's also probably one stuck on the actual rim itself. So just make sure you take this out. You're going to have to clean that up before you put that back on. That looks a little pretty crummy and dirty, so you're going to want to clean that up and then re-grease it before you put it all back together. And then you just take this off nice and easy. Watch your exhaust if you have an exhaust that's in the way. And there, your newly removed flat tire. Now while you have this off, you're going to want to make sure that you inspect everything really as thoroughly as you possibly can. We all ride these bikes pretty hard, and you just want to make sure that you're keeping the bike in good maintenance condition. So this spindle and the mounting area here, you can see there's some pretty dirty grease on there. We're going to clean that all up and re-grease it and then get it back together nice and square. See you soon. Alright, so we've got the tire off the bike. Obviously I've cleaned up the tire a little bit. You want to get any sort of like dirt, dust, and debris, anything like that, off the rim and the area where you're going to be in the surfaces that you're going to be working with, because otherwise it's just sort of a common sense thing, but also I think they even tell you in the instruction videos to clean it up, otherwise you might get some debris that could cause some damage to the rim or even the duck head. So this is mounted up with using the Ducati 56mm adapter. It only really goes in from the one side, so you got to mount it in from the offset side in, and then put it on there once you've got the adapter already mounted into the rim. I'm going to start just by trying to break the bead, and we'll see how it goes. It's the first time using this, so we'll trial and error here, but I think I've got it set up. You get that as close as you can there, and you just apply some pressure until the bead breaks. And there it goes. About an eighth of a turn or so. Now these are pretty hard tires. These are obviously sport tires, so once you go around the tire, the whole thing is broken. Be a little careful when you get near the valve stem there. You don't want to damage that, so I try not to do anything directly over the valve stem. Once you got the one side broken, you just keep the tire off. Let's see, flip it around. Just try not to drop the adapter out of it. it back on. One important thing that they talk about is making sure that these magnetic braces are in the right place. So you can see you're going to get a good solid connection between the rim of the tire, so that when you're pressing down that you're not have a wobbly tire. Again, just move your valve stem so out of the way. Those. This is a pretty hard carcass tire, so it might take a little extra work just to make sure you get it pushed down towards the middle of the drop center of the wheel. And then just roll this back out of the way. Then you're going to want to attach your duck head. You may have to adjust this up a little bit, depending on the size of your rim. These are 17s, so. And then just roll that right down to the bottom. Again, always a good idea to start away from your valve stem. Even if you don't have like a tire pressure monitor, you just don't want to do anything that's going to create any damage there. So we'll get the tire iron in there. That part is a little tricky, but you can see you've kind of got the edge of the tire over the duck head. Iron's still in there. So now you're ready to use the ratchet system. It does really help to use this handle to make sure that you're pressing the edge of the tire that you're trying to pull up into the drop center so that you have some room to work. Otherwise, it's really hard to use this as a lever. Anyway, take this out. Put it in here. It probably makes sense to kind of stand on this thing just to give a little extra stability, and then just kind of start to work your way around. The tire iron just kind of comes out. You can see the bead kind of came right off. Alright, and you're going to want to kind of just do the same thing all over again. Bring this back down to the bottom. Alright, get this tire iron under the other second bead there. And then just pull it up over the side. Start the handle back. Just make sure that your pin is in there so that it doesn't spin. Take out your tire iron. Off she comes. Pretty painless. Yeah, I'll say it does take a little bit of practice. I would say this is my very first time trying this machine, and I would say even for a first time, I was able to figure it out really without a tremendous amount of difficulty. So far so good. So now we've got that tire off. I've got two, call them basically used tires. These are two tires that I've used at the track. I think maybe they have a session on them. One tire is better than the other tire. Actually, I have that reversed. This tire looks like it's a little bit better shape. It treads a little deeper. So we're going to go ahead and put that back on. Slightly bigger tire. When the tire I took off was a 255. This is a 260. Not sure it's going to matter here. I actually prefer the taller tire myself. One little thing to kind of keep in mind too with Pirelli tires, you may have noticed these Pirelli tires, or your Pirelli tires, have these two little red dots here. That is supposed to be the lightest point of this tire. You know, we talked about balancing, we will talk about balancing. I also bought the Rabaconda tire balancer, the manual balancer. So we're going to give that a shot later once we get the tire mounted. But In theory, this is the lightest point of the tire, these two little red dots. So if you see those on your tire, you'll know what they're for. And the concept is you're supposed to mount that near the valve stem. So that's what we're going to try and do. By the time you get to this point, you will have already sort of cleaned up your tire, hopefully. I just rubbed it out down with a little bit of alcohol just to make sure there wasn't anything, sort of cruddy on there. You're going to want to use a good amount of bead grease all the way around this tire on both sides. Other really important point, obviously, tires are directional, and you want to make sure that you find the little arrow here that shows the wheel rotation direction. And then depending on the rim that you're using, for the Marcassinis, these also have this little arrow in here. You may not realize that little arrow is supposed to indicate the direction of travel in terms of the rotation. So you want to make sure that you're matching up this arrow with that little arrow. Should go on pretty easy, at least for the first bead. And then second bead, you're going to probably want to go ahead and use your duck head. You're going to have to adjust it. All right, once you have it all on there, just make sure everything is, sort of nice and flush as much as you can. And then you're going to want to just make sure that you push this over the edge, sort of diagonally of this duck head. Push down what you can push down, I suppose. Get the tire. I think we're ready to mount the tire at this point. I did run into one little, call it a snafu if you want, but because the single-sided swing arm of Ducati is, has the wheel is so offset to accommodate that. This little stopper pin that's in here, and you can probably see it in this forward, but this little pin here that keeps the tire or the wheel from turning when you're mounting it. If you mount it basically from the front side, and if you're looking at it from the side of the bike where the swing arm is not, it's sort of a much longer, sort of distance, and so you can't actually mount it from that side. You got to mount it from the back, which is sort of a learning curve thing that maybe you can, if you're using this on a Ducati wheel, you can save yourself the trouble, because the wheel is too far out to hit that pin and keep it from turning. So you have to sort of mount it with the wheel sort of upside down. But in any event, I think we're ready to go. I'm going to put a little more grease on this. If that would help. All right. I'll use this handle. So we've already got one of these locking devices in there to help keep it centered. I have another one if I need it. Now we've got everything in place. The duck head is already situated. So now let's just see what happens as we push this thing around. We're probably going to need to put this other device on here because the duck head came out, so we'll have to bring it back and start again. All right, so we've got the duck head back in place. I'm going to try it again. See if we can keep that from popping off of there. So I'll keep this down a little bit. Important to keep the tire in the center, just like you're taking it off. You can see it's getting pretty close. Looks like it's gonna pop right on there. There we go. Alright, so after sort of rolling the tire around on the ground a little bit, kind of took shape. Got the valve core out still, so went ahead and hooked up some air to it. We'll just go ahead and inflate the tire until it sets up. There we go. This Jayco air filler has a gauge on it, but to be honest, I don't necessarily trust these gauges all that much. So I have one gauge that I try and use all the time, digital gauge. So I have to use that one to make sure where I'm at. It's a Motion Pro. That's what I like to use on the track. This says 28. And this one said 34. So it's a big difference. Again, usually plates are right around 35. I don't ride at 35, but good pressure to, and find on the model. Good pressure to let the tires set up and, go from there. Alright, so we've got the wheel, the tire mounted on the rim, and we've got the, whole wheel up here up on the balancer. I went ahead and bought the Rabaconda static balancer. It's very easy to use, pretty standard stuff. Just want to make sure it's on a level surface. I've also went ahead and found the heaviest point on the wheel, which is marked by this little piece of blue tape here. But essentially how you do that is you basically just kind of let the wheel, spin as it will, and eventually it will settle at the heaviest part, the bottom position, and then you just mark it with a little piece of tape. You can see I don't have any wheel weights on here yet, so you can see it's rotating around, so that blue tape heads towards the bottom there. I've already kind of gone through this process, so I kind of know where it is. I'm not going to spend time letting it go back and forth to find top dead center, but in any event. So what you want to do is start with some weights. I've got these Motion Pro. I got 8 ounce, or rather 1/8 ounce, and I have some 1/4 ounce. We're not going to need the 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce is even more than enough. Basically what you do is you want to bring the piece of tape up to the top position, and then you want to basically, from the opposite side, start to apply some wheel weights. I'm going to start with 2 since it's moving pretty slow, and I don't need too much more than that. So that's about 1/4 ounce there. And what you want to do is you want to just stick it to some blue tape or some kind of adhesive tape. You don't want to just stick them on, and just at that point you're sort of guessing. You want to make sure that you have the right weight, so you can temporarily attach it to the wheel, the inside of the rim rather, and then see how that adjustment works. So you basically let go of it after you've attached it, see which way it rotates, if it rotates at all. Now you might get lucky on the first try, and the wheel weights that you put on there might just be enough to balance it. But you can see here, this one's kind of starting to rotate again, so I think it's going to need a little more weight. Going pretty slow. I don't think it's going to need too much. So maybe what we'll do is we'll add another 1/8 ounce. And bring it back up to top dead center and see how it does. Still moving slow. And again, these are the Motion Pro 1/8 ounce wheel weights. I basically got these on Amazon, so I'm sure you can get these at either a local shop or on Amazon. It seems like it's doing okay. Just gonna try it from the other side. But it's good to double check it in a couple different positions. As you can see, the previously heaviest point is now no longer going straight to the bottom. So bring it halfway around. See how that does. It's not even completing a full rotation one way or the other. So you could probably have either left off that last weight. Yeah, that's pretty good. So in any event, like I said, just check it a few times, make sure you got it right. You don't want to have a wobbly tire, especially on a high performance Ducati V4. That's pretty good. It's going to stop right there. So I think that's basically it. Simple stuff. Not more than a couple extra minutes. All right, so we've got the tire mounted up, it's balanced. We want to get it back on the bike. As I said before, we wanted to clean up all the sort of gunk that was on the inside of the hub in there. Get everything re-greased up. You can see we've cleaned up that whole mount there. That all looks nice and clean. And we're ready to mount up the tire. I personally use this Staplex. It's just like a high pressure premium red grease. I've seen some mechanics using that. I'm not a mechanic, so obviously if you are, then you may know something better. But if you're not sure what to use, do speak with your local mechanic. All right, so basically, just want to get that there relatively straight and get it lined up with those mounting pins like that. And we're going to put back each of the things that we've taken off on there. This cone spacer. And you've got your nuts. I've also cleaned up. Everything's nice and smooth. Now, the torque specs on this are pretty standard. I know everyone says, oh, don't give out torque specs online, so on and so forth. Basically, the torque spec is usually on the tool. So if you have the tool for this device, either refer to the owner's manual, the Ducati website, if you can find any torque specs there, which is unlikely, or the tool that you're using to mount this thing up. All right, so once you've got everything sort of in place, this is the device that I use basically. This is the wheel nut for the front is inside there, and this is the rear wheel nut. This has torque specs on it, as I said. It says for the front 63 Newton meters, and the rear is 230, which is what I understood it to be in any event. So you want to get it on there and tighten as much as you can. And then you want to make sure you always use a torque wrench. You never ever want to guess about the torque spec on this thing. I like a digital torque wrench. I think it's a little bit more accurate. This is a little awkward because at some point, once it starts to get tight, you're going to have to hold your foot on the rear brake at the same time as you're cranking on this thing. So here we go. And hold it for a bit by hand, but at some point you're going to need to use the rear brake. Which looks a little something like this. All right, so I have this wrench preset to 230, so we didn't have to set the wrench, but that's basically it. So you got a nice free spin. And now you're going to want to put this spring clamp back on there. Usually goes on pretty easy by hand. You just want to find the little holes here. And then try to line it up. One there, usually two. One over there. have to spin it around until you find the right spot for it, but you do want to make sure that it gets into that little hole and it's not just kind of floating around there. Depending on where it lines up, you just spin it around. There you go. So if one hole is not lined up, the other one should be. That's basically it. We went from a flat tire with a screw in it to a new used tire, a nice new balance wheel. And that's it. Bottom line is, I think the Rabaconda is a win. It can take a little bit of, developing a technique, but at the end of the day, it saved me a trip to and from the dealership or a mechanic. It's a rainy Saturday, so I kind of don't want to do that, and most of those folks won't take you on the weekends anyway. And so, yeah, call it a success.